God's mistakes. Now take a look at this child rapist dressed as a nun. What are God's mistakes? He doesn't know. All he knows are how to get children into his room so that he can rape them. But God's mistakes are the most effed up forms of life. And for today, we're going to go to a little place that you probably haven't heard of. Is that hipstery? Maybe. Called Socotra. Now, Socotra is an island and also a little bit of an archipelago off the coast of Yemen. You could see it is closer to Somalia, but it is the property of Yemen. It used to be not open to travel, so on and so forth. Now, because this island is fairly big, there are several species that are endemic to it, which means they're found there and nowhere else. Socotra is a very arid landscape, and they're most famous for their dragon trees, these dragon blood trees, which look like umbrellas. And apparently they've evolved to this form because they can make shade so that the water doesn't evaporate as soon as it hits the ground. You can now buy these for sale, but it takes like 100 years for them to grow that big. Like you get them with the one leaf for like, it used to be, you could get their relatives very easily. You know those money trees you get at the like the laundromat, which you just cut them and make them, they're relatives of these. Now, what else is interesting about Socotra is there is a species there called, let's go to the next picture, Duvalyandra. Now this is from my house. Not at the back is Adenia. We're not talking about Adenia. So Duvalyandra, okay, it's green, it's plasticky, it's kind of cool. Duvalyandra is part of the Stepaliid group, and the Stepaliid group are very interesting because many of its members are pollinated not by bees, but by flies. And what are flies attracted to? Go to the next picture. This is the flower that was in my house. Meat. So, if you look at it closely, you can see it's pink, like meat. You could see some hairs on it. And when you walk in the house, it smells, and it's a hard smell to describe, and it's not that strong. It gets stronger when it gets hotter, just like meat, as it would rot, would get hotter, because it's meant to attract flies. And if you look at the very center, you can see that little kind of raised platform where the flies would go in. And the texture, it even looks like meat. Something else that is interesting about the Socotra Islands. There's an island. Can you go back to the first picture of Socotra? If you look at the island to the left of Socotra proper, you see that's Abd al Kuri. So there is a species called Euphorbia Abd al Kuri. Now, if you go back past Duvalyandra, see that? Okay, see this? Everyone thinks it's a cactus. Oh, it's a cactus. It's a cactus. It's a cactus. It's not a fucking cactus. Cactuses are endemic to the Western Hemisphere. This is Euphorbia trigona. How you know the difference between euphorbia and a cactus? All euphorbias, which are in the milkweed group, if you stab them, latex comes out, this white plasticky substance. Now, if there's a species, and euphorbia has hundreds of species. They look very, very different from all the world. If you go to the next picture, this is the euphorbia that's from Abd al Kuri, and it's called, naturally, Euphorbia Abd al Kuri. What's interesting about Euphorbia Abd al Kuri is its latex, if you stab it, the sap, is so toxic, it will eat through your flesh. And yes, I have one in my house. It grows very, very slowly. Go back to it. If you stab it, I've always been tempted to, but I'm really, really scared that if I stab it, it'll like squirt, and then it's all like Indiana Jones. But that is a very, and the thing is, it's almost impossible to get them to flower because they have to, live for a very, very long time. They get this candelabra shape. It'll have like the one stem and many of these arms, just horrific, no leaves, just standing there, and they're very, very thick to keep the water retention. So that is today's edition of God's Mistakes.